Yeah, what up? This is Mr. Royce Media coming at you guys with another video. This is another live stream. How y'all doing tonight? Yeah, get your tongue out of Big Shirley's buns. I know what you're doing. Shit, they're talking about put a big black baby in me. Put a big black baby. I know that's what you got Big Shirley doing. Yeah, big old Tamika. Speaking of the assistant plant manager, I know what you guys are doing. Nasty boys. Yeah. What's up? How's everybody doing tonight? Is everybody doing good? It's Friday night. If you ain't at the club and if you ain't at Big Tamika's house, you are here with me. And I appreciate it. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Let me close this door to my office so I don't get any intrusions. Hold on a second. And I'm back. That was real quick. So, can you guys hear me? Let me make sure everybody can hear me. It seems like everybody can hear me. I hope so. Anyway, there's a lot going on in the world. We uh we're right now we're living through the Trump era presidency, and I know I haven't been on in a while and haven't talked much about it at all. And I'm not going to talk about it tonight. So guess what? That's what you're looking for. You're gonna have to wait. I'm gonna talk about some dating babble because that's what y'all really seem to like. Y'all really like talking about that stuff. The sexes want to figure out how to get the opposite sex to bend to their will. Everybody's trying to get everybody to submit. So everybody wants to talk about dating and their frustrations with dating. Now, I can't tell you how to date because, number one, y'all gonna be like, well, you've been married all this time and you don't even know what's out here. Like, I don't see this shit that's happening. Like, I don't talk to people on a regular basis. Like, I don't sit back and observe people. I spent almost 30 years observing people. That was what I did. I was a surveillance investigator. And all I did was watch people, read body language, and make assessments and different stuff like that. A lot of my education and training went to that. So I see more than you think I see. It is what it is. You can disagree all you want. I don't care. Go find something else to do. But since you won't, we'll talk about it. One of the big things in the news is the Shannon Sharp situation. Shannon then got himself caught up with a young girl, with a young OnlyFans thing, and some things have come out about Shannon as far as his relationship practices and how he deals with the young women that he deals with. Well, one young woman in particular. Shannon has went on record before saying that he likes to date young girls. Shannon Sharp is approximately about 56 years old, and he don't want to date a woman his age. And he's getting a lot of criticism and backlash for it. And a lot of this criticism is coming from one group. It's the community because they believe in assortative dating, but only going one way. And so his primary opposition are black females and black female minded men. So it is what it is. You know, they're saying he should get a woman his age, another 56-year-old woman, so she can rub his feet and, she won't do all of this stuff. But I disagree because women are women and all women are capable of doing the same things. Not meaning that because they are capable, they will do dastardly things, but they all are capable of it. And we have a legal system that is complicit and that will enable them to do dastardly things. Anyway, getting back to Shannon Sharp, he's been dating a young 19-year-old girl because he likes the young 19-year-old girls. And shout out to Coach Greg Adams. Uh, he calls it the JUCO. Uh, Shannon likes the JUCO. He likes the young girl. He likes the junior college girls, as they say. And Coach Greg Adams has said this. They're making brand new 19, 18-year-olds every day. And 18 in most of the states is well within the age of sexual consent in the United States. It's so, in some states it's younger, but 18 is pretty much the consensus in all 50 states. Everybody, by the time they hit 18, they are within the age of sexual consent. And Shannon was in seemingly a consensual relationship with a girl who, at the time, I guess they first started dating, she was 19. So, you know, but still, the sisterhood has a problem with that. And, of course, they're going to have a problem with that because he should be with, in their mind, he should be with a woman that's 67 years old. You know, he needs to go out there and say somebody's grandmother. That's how they see it. That's how they see it. If you know, you black man, you need to be with a black woman your age, born within the same 3 month period that you were born, and so forth and so on. Or she can be older. She can be older because as we saw, um, also within this time period, we saw some things said by Tracy Ellis Ross, who was the daughter of Diana Ross, and we'll get into that a little bit later. So but Shannon Sharp is catching a lot of heat, I guess, because this girl has made certain allegations that even though this was a consensual relationship, that he did some things outside of the realm of consent, and that he made, she alleges that he was doing some strong arm activity. He's a pretty big guy, big strong guy, and so she alleged that he did some strong arm activities, and asking for she's filed a $50 million lawsuit, and she has employed the services of attorney Tony Busby, who is basically the male version of Gloria Allred. He likes to go after celebrities for salacious, uh, sexually tinged cases, and he primarily likes to settle out of court. From what I've seen, if he's taking courses to cases to trial, I've never seen that. From what I've seen, from what's been put out in the news, he usually likes to strong arm plaintiffs, or offenders, or the uh, the defendants, or whatever you want to call them, into settlements. He plays a settlement game primarily, and so this is what I see from him. What do you guys think about that? He's been criticized by people such as Joe Judge Brown, Judge Joe Brown, who has said he's never actually that Tony Busby has never actually taken a case to trial. Like I said, I don't know if that's true, but I do know of him, pushing for settlement. And right now, they filed a suit against Shannon Sharp for $50 million, and this is on the heel of him being close to signing a $100 million deal uh, with one of his shows. I'm not sure if it's the show on ESPN or if it's his podcast on Club Shakespeare. You know, so what do you guys think about that? Let's talk about it. What do you guys think about that? You know, well, while you guys trying to figure that out, let's talk about Tracy Ellis Ross, because as I mentioned earlier, this is on the heels of Tracy Ellis Ross having a sit down with Michelle Obama and talking about her life as a older single woman, and as a older single woman who likes to date men who are younger than her. She said they are gorgeous and beautiful, and she likes to, she doesn't want to deal with men her age because they are set in her ways. She's basically said everything that Shannon Sharp has said. And even she basically said everything that Trick Daddy has said. Um, and that's interesting because she received a lot of support, a lot of yes, girl, a lot of the seal clapping from the same sexuals and the women and the women like womenish men who they supported her with the how they do. And it's funny because she said the exact same thing Shannon Sharp said, Trick Daddy said. And you know these guys have received backlash. They've received a lot of criticism. So I'll tell you what it seems like. It seems like we are currently in a world where women, especially, women in general, the Western woman, she can do whatever it is she wants. She really doesn't have any rules. But the man has all the rules. The Western man has all the rules, and his all the rules that he has is to conform to what the Western woman wants or what she doesn't want. He can't do if she doesn't like it, he can't do it. If she likes it, then it is um, to his benefit that he does it, and or else he's not going to get you know access to the gushy. Yeah, I know what the gushy is, right? The gushy, you know, the gushy, the gushy with a P. We'll leave it at that. What y'all think about that? It seems like it's true. It seems like it's true. They want men to be uh you know hyper um hyper I want to say compensatory, but that's not the word. Um Hyper complementary, or basically they want men to go above and beyond to uh placate and to bend to what women want. Meanwhile, women can be out here like wild horses. They can do whatever they want. They can wear what they want, walk around with stuff real tight across their anatomy from the you know mid chest all the way down to up under the buttocks. They can walk around with painted outfits on. They could they can talk about pee popping and make songs about the color of their genitals. Um and men, Western men are to accept it. You know, what do y'all think about that? I think it's weird. You know, these women, men can only have one woman at a time. Really, they want to make it to where men can only have one shot at one woman for the rest of his life. And even if that woman rejects him, he is supposed to spend the rest of his life getting into that woman's favor. Meanwhile, this woman can not only have different men at different times, she can have children by those different men and bring those children into each and every one of those relationships that she has. And when she's done with that relationship, she is free to move on, and the new man, the new perspective man in her life is to accept those children from other relationships and to raise those children as his own. It's like Mary, Mother Mary going wild. What do y'all think about that, man? You know, and he can't be older than her, but she can be older than him. You know, Keisha Cole style, Mary J. Blige style. If at the most they'll call it an inappropriate relationship. If it is a man who's older than a woman, he is a predator. He is a deviant. He is all this other stuff. So that's how they're looking at it. And this is women pushing the narrative, and female like men pushing the narrative. You know, what do y'all think about this, man? What do y'all think about this? I think this is an interesting time that we live in, and the thing about it is people like me, uh, people like Angry Man, uh, people like I would say Obsidian, um, people like uh, Painless Risen, some of the other guys. Shout out to all of these guys. I don't know if I mentioned Greg Adams. Um, there are certain people that we have been warning about this for years. If you are one of my Facebook friends, I've been talking about this for years. This is nothing new. Only now the trad conosphere has they've decided to start talking about it, but we've been talking about it for years. And as you guys know, I am not a big fan of the trad cons. I am not a trad con person. I am an egalitarian, but I am an egalitarian to the point to where it's painful for women, because I'm like, hey, put them on the front line. In in combat, and they should have to sign up for select service in the draft. And domestic violence laws should be outlawed, and instead we should have mutual combat statutes nationwide. I'm that guy. And so, you know, um, I have an opinion a lot of people have difficulties with, especially if they're track cons. And at the end of the day, I don't care. I don't care. Um, I'm all about giving women what they ask for, even if it's painful. You know, the only way you're going to get them back to where you guys want them to be is that you have to let them feel the pain of their choices. You know, so anyone, anyone. You know. Anyway, this whole situation with Shannon Sharp, they're saying, well, had he got with a woman that was his age, it would have been better. Had he got with a black woman, he wouldn't be having these problems, which is not true, because we got Will and Jada, Judge Joe Brown wife, not Judge Joe Brown, but what's the other judge? You know, Judge Greg Mathis. His wife was about to divorce him after 40 years of marriage, which is crazy. Like, she gonna be out here on the streets, and somebody gonna want to one of those twins, Tia Mowry, she left her husband, stable husband. Seemed like he was. I'll tell you, and I've said this before. While I don't know Corey personally, I know Corey's family. When I was working in law enforcement, um, I worked out there with his family, with his close family. And when I say with his family, I mean like siblings, parents, stuff like that. I know his family, and he comes from a good family. He comes from good people, you know. Um, so he's a good guy, and she left a solid guy, so she can be out here in the streets shaking it. So she can be out here chasing random roosters. She wanted to chase, she wanted to catch stray roosters, and turn them into pets, and do catch and release with the stray roosters. So you look at Johnny Depp. He was married to Amber Heard. Marriage didn't save him. You know, marriage didn't save a lot of guys from problems and stuff. Ultimately, with what this young girl is doing, this is the name of the game. They're all commercialized now. They all have a price tag. All women potentially have a price tag, which it doesn't mean that they're going to necessarily be wanting money. They're all transactional, though. They all want something for access to them and their bodies. It is what it is. It is what it is. The married ones too. It's I've heard many times married women talking about how uh, they possibly go sell, feed pics or something like that. When they say that, my mind means to go, you want to sell coochie. It is what it is. You know, they all want to sell something. They be it sex or the ideal of sex. They all want to go sell something. Shout out to uh, Alan Roger Curry, rest in peace, brother. You know, so they all have the idea that their sexuality or the ideal of their sexuality is worth something monetarily, and it may not always be money. It may be time, attention, all that other good stuff. Whatever is the acceptable medium of exchange, they feel like they can exchange sex for that. So all you guys that want a loving, meaningful connection, okay, all right, you know, uh, yeah. So I mean, this is just the state of the game nowadays. This is what y'all got to deal with. It is what it is. But I've been married almost 30 years. I don't know what I'm talking about, because I don't speak to, women and stuff. And I don't, I just got blinders on. I can't see nothing. This is what I'm talking about. Married men have all of these rules to conform to. Meanwhile, the women are free to do whatever it is they want. They can talk about whatever it is they want. They can talk about whoever it is they want. They have the prerogative to change their minds, wear what they want. Meanwhile, the men are to be pack mules. They're to be workhorses with the blinders on. That's how y'all see it. That's why married guys can't talk about that. As if I don't have female relatives, as if I don't. I've never talked to women that I work with, as if I don't pay attention to women online, except I don't have female relatives. This is how y'all see things, and y'all stupid. Really? At the end of the day, y'all stupid. You know. So, but like I said, I don't know now. I'm grandpa. Okay, all right. I'm grandpa. I'll be grandpa. There's a lot of stuff that you all have that I already know about, and I've seen examples of it that you all haven't lived through or you all don't believe that exists because you personally haven't experienced it, that I've either seen or experienced, or both. Anyway, getting back to the Shannon Sharp situation. The problem with Shannon Sharp is that Shannon Sharp, number one, um, if this isn't an outright psyop, because there have been questions about Shannon Sharp's sexuality for quite some time, because he'll wear some questionable stuff. He'd be dressed up like a bad bitch. hey, get mad if you want, Shannon, but you be dressed up like a bad bitch. And yeah, you might be in shape, but um, you know, I have things to deal with, guys like you, things and skill sets. So I'm not afraid of you, so I'm gonna say what I want. You know, it is what it is. You know, let's just agree to disagree, but you be dressed up like a bad bitch. All right, so there's questions about his sexuality. Anyway, and also, so there have been things put out about his business, an alleged Instagram leak about an encounter that he had with Mattel, you know, and he's been advertising these libido pills, these stamina pills, and so he kind of shone a light and drew attention to uh, questions about his sexual prowess, besides those that were already there. And then there was that situation to where the Ebony Taylor chick, she was sued, and Skip Bayless was brought up for trying to pay a hairdresser an insane amount of money to try to sleep with her, and things, came up about, how Shannon, how he was moving about in the workplace, which is stupid, So more and more attention was being drawn towards um Shannon's sexual prowess. And so this popped up where this young girl says that Shannon is this, and he has a relationship with her, and that within that relationship he is violated, and she tried to extort some money out of him, and was talking about she put price on certain body parts of hers, and and different things like that. And there was another conversation where Shannon was talking about doing some things where, you know, um, there was some rough play. There was some BDSM play, and she said that he didn't honor the safe word, and certain terms of the agreement, and so now she wants $50 million. You know, what do y'all think about that? What do y'all think about that, man? I think that either this whole thing is a psyop, or there's some fugazi, a lot of fugazi on our part. And that's not to say that Shannon probably didn't do some of the stuff he did. I think he absolutely did, but I don't think we're dealing with a victim here. I think we're dealing with a sore loser and the accuser, you know. But I don't know for sure. I wasn't there. Ultimately, if there is a trial, the stuff will come out. Allegedly, he offered to pay her $10 million, which is, I think, was probably 9 million too much. But he should have been doing some things in the beginning. If you're going to deal with certain individuals, first of all, when you're dealing with famous men, and as you all know, I have a former background in law enforcement, and within that, I've encountered some things and some people, and some parts of the underworld. I've witnessed and observed that you all may not have done. And then I've also done private security for celebrities and things like that. And again, I've seen some things that you all aren't used to, that you all may have heard of but not have witnessed yourself. But I'll tell you this much: for guys with the type of wealth that Shannon Sharp has, um, there is a pool of women. When you hear about like these different athletes or different business people, people in certain circles, they all seem to be involved with the same women and have children by the same women. That's not by accident. That is it's almost like a club, or something like that. when you talk about it, just Lane Maxwell, this is kind of what she did. She introduced young women into certain spaces. The same thing with what was the madam to the rich and famous, not just Lane Maxwell, but the other one. I can't even think her name now, but you know, she's not the only one. Shout out to Fannie Mae. Um, yeah, if you know, you know. Uh, there are others, but they're, you know, when you're talking about rich and powerful men and different things like that, and celebrities, um, there are certain circles that they deal with certain women that you know uh, their dis- discretion is prized as much, if not more, than their physical beauty. So, yeah, you had to be beautiful. You had to be like nines or tens, but you also have to know how to keep your mouth closed. You also have to know how not to make a scene. Um, and the thing about it is, guys like Shannon Sharp and these other athletes, Zion Williamson and this Anthony Everson and different things like that. These guys have stepped outside of that thanks to Instagram and OnlyFans and social media and stuff. These guys have stepped outside of the parameters of those circles, and now they're they're accessing neighborhood girls. She may be the baddest chick from Hyde Park in Chicago. She may be the baddest chick from like Washington Heights in the Bronx. She may be the baddest chick in Germantown in Philadelphia. Um, she may be a baddie from one of those places. She may be a baddie from College Park in Georgia and Atlanta. And these guys have branched out and they're dealing with women who haven't been groomed to be in those worlds. It is what it is. I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm saying that's what it is. These women aren't steeped in those lifestyles. This is what happened with the situation with Brittany Renner, um, and Samantha Bee and stuff. These are women who, they, um, they're women who came from outside of it, and they come in with the mentality to get the bag, and they get the baby, they get the bag, they or they get the evidence and they try to get the bag. This is the new scam, and now, you know, uh, now that uh, you know, backdoor palimony and backdoor alimony is civil suits based on sex crime allegations. You know, this is what it is. And this is what these women are doing. Greg Adams has brought this up. I brought this up years ago. You know, I would say BG Sidmore has talked about this. There's been a few of us that have talked about this, and now this is what you have. And these women they're coming in. Everybody talks about that great transfer of wealth. The great transfer of wealth is not just from rich and poor; it's from male to female. That's what the real great transfer of wealth is, and that's what the Me Too movement and Times Up and different things like that. That's what that stuff was about. So this is what you have. It's women, getting rich off the back of men by hook or crook. And so, Shannon Sharp is, he's another casualty in that pursuit. And that's because he was stupid. Instead of him paying a little up front on the front end, he's gonna wind up having to pay a lot later. He, And instead of him staying within the confines of situations where um, it was safer, he decided to venture out there in no man's land of Instagram and OnlyFans and different stuff like that, you know. And so now it may cost him $50 million. You know, it may cost him $50 million. You know, um, and this is a funny thing. You know, you have a lot of guys that talk about the, you know, I'll get it off the mouthpiece. I don't pay. You're gonna pay one way or another. There's a whole lot of guys that's in jail or in graves right now who, you know, eventually they had to pay. Either it was jail time, it was child support money, or it was they had to pay with their lives. And it's going to only get accelerated. It's only going to happen more and more, you know. And that's until men figure out what it is they're going to do. And I can't say what they're going to figure, what they need to do. Um, it's going to differ depending on your economic class, your age, uh, your race in some cases. And this is, going back to this whole situation. This is not an age or race thing. You know, as I mentioned before, Judge Mathis was married to his wife almost 40 years. Look at the hell look at the Will Smith, Jada Smith situation. You look at the Mary J. Blige, and her husband. You look, it's not a race thing, it's not an age thing. All women are capable of this, and I've mentioned this before. So the thing is men, number one, um, you got to have some personal standards. You got to have some personal awareness. It's not just standards. It's not just dick control. It's also, men have to figure out what are they going to do with other men to protect men from what's happening, and you know, how they're going to pursue legislation. This whole thing of forgiving child support. My thing about that is, um, that's not an everyman issue, but alimony is an everyman issue. Alimony and backdoor palimony and accusations of sex crimes. That's an everyman issue, you know. And quite frankly, if you married and you and your woman split up for whatever reason, I do think there is a reasonable amount of money that should be paid if you have children. Do I think it should be something crazy like 50% of your salary? No. You know, Especially nowadays where you got women earning just as much as men. So I don't think it should be 50%. I think 25%, no more than 30 is reasonable. You know, you make $1,000, 300, I think is reasonable. Based on that, I think 300 is actually more than reasonable. I think really 250 is reasonable if you make $1,000 and for whatever reason that relationship split up. But that's after the child is proven to be yours. I think DNA should be mandatory for any woman that files for a child support case. It don't have to be mandatory out of the hospital, but the minute she files for child support, DNA test should be mandatory. A court ordered DNA test should be mandatory. And she shouldn't receive a dime until she proves that that child is yours. You know, um, things like prenups and stuff. Yeah, but if you don't have any money when you got married, the prenup, you come into a relationship, both y'all broke, prenup ain't gonna do you no good. you know. No fault divorce, you got a lot of guys that, they're against that. But my thing is that um if she is crazy and terrorizing you, you know, I don't have an issue with no fault divorce, but if you file for no fault divorce that y'all ain't compatible, then you know, she should leave with no more than 25%. You know, if that woman, or whoever files, should leave, you know, that they shouldn't be able to, destroy the other person as far as their earnings and stuff. Something's got to be done with that. As far as getting rid of no fault divorce, no, because if you with somebody abusive or you with a woman who is a domestic terrorist, you need to get away from her. If she's abuse, she's type of chick that she stabs you in your hand and then blames it on um, you know premenstrual syndrome or whatever they call it. You need to be able to get away from it. That ain't got nothing to do with infidelity. If she decide, you put your check in the bank, she get a hold of it, and she spent all your money buying her, some red bottoms. You need to get away from her. You shouldn't be stopped. You should be prevented from getting away from that woman. If she, type that, she, all makes all kinds of threats and she's playing, she's cheating you out of marital sex, you know, she's always got a headache. You need to be able to get out of that, you know, especially if y'all don't like, men supplementing, you know, then you need to be able to let that man get out of that relationship. So this whole push against no fault divorce, I think it's, I think it's misguided, and it's another stupid issue. Trad cons come up with. I don't think they think through things completely. I think everything their goal is to go back to the 40s or the 30s, and I think that's an issue. You know, you got a woman that you with a woman that she's threatening to drown the dog every other week. You need to get away from her. You need to be able to get away from her, and that's where no fault divorce comes in. So I don't have an issue with that. In trad cons, they, for better or for worse, if this woman is threatening to kill you, you need to be able to get away from her. Because one of y'all gonna be either dead or in a jail cell. You need to be, as a man, you need to be able to save yourself. So when trad cons talk like that, that is stupid. Uh, so getting back to this Shannon Sharp situation, you know, he should have had this chick signing NDAs and different things like that. And, he probably should have put her on a little stipend or something, to where, and he should have been upfront with it. Look, listen, I got you, but I got other women too. The thing is you got to be honest, and you got to tell these women, if you want to be non-monogamous, cool. You want to have a rotation, a stable, cool. You got to let them know what they're getting into, give them the choice to be in or be out. I mean, he's Shannon Sharp. He got money, he got muscles, he got he got motion, you know, he women will go for it, just like this young goofy went for it, other women will go for it. And you would be surprised what women will go for if you're up front, you know. Um, Besides, there's more women than men. Thing is, he tried to do it like broke dudes. I get it on the mouthpiece. I get it on the mouthpiece. Yep. I get it on the mouthpiece. Yep. Ah, that don't work for you. You are at a different level, and the thing with him trolling around on social media, that is the badlands, the wild west of dating. Ain't nothing on social media but scammers, chicks with herpes, baby mamas, chicks with you know emotional mental baggage. and stuff like that, you know, what are you doing on social media? You know, that's picking up chicks on Instagram and different things like that. It's kind of crazy, man. That's wild. But that's what these guys are doing. I guess it's like what they would call slumming, which is a term that they used to use back in the day for white girls going in the hood, dating hood black dudes, or dating hood Latino guys. White girls you know, who were clearly from the suburbs and stuff. They would go get with these dangerous hood dudes. So these guys are slumming, and it seems like Shannon Sharp might like slumming. Oh, that's so good, Michelle. You my favorite girl. You're so good girl, Michelle. you know, hey, look, man. You know, hey, I mean, this goes to my point I've been saying for years. Everybody, all you guys like Keisha, man. I don't care what you guys talking. These women need to be better and they're more Claire Huxtables. At the end of the day, y'all still banging Keisha. Y'all still like Keisha. Thing about it is y'all denying that y'all do, but to be honest, man, Keisha look good, you know. And Keisha's not just from the FBAs. You got Thai Keisha, you got China Keisha, China Keisha, you got Car Keisha, you got you know, uh La Keisha, you got a bunch of different Keishas. so it's more of a demeanor and lifestyle than it is a racial thing. But you guys like the Keisha. Y'all want to tame the wild beast just as much as the women want. They want Tupacs with a suit. They want ghosts. They want ghosts and power. We've been saying this for a long time. You know. I've been watching what's that Blacklist? All the white chicks full time. He's a school teacher, but he's also a sociopathic killer. They want American Psycho. you know, this guy. He's a lover. He's a rich businessman, and he's also a sociopathic killer. That's what they want. And you guys want, y'all want to tame Keisha, you know. That's why Keisha keep popping up pregnant because you guys keep skeeting in her, you know. It is what it is. So, I mean, you know, what do y'all think about that, man? Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. And just like y'all want Keisha, Shannon Sharp want Keisha too. He got himself a La Keisha, a Latin Keisha. She want him to put a big black baby in her. you know, uh, let's not act like this is unusual and this was racist because I've seen black women. I got a buddy who is for all intents and purposes, he's a Mandingo. I got a few buddies like that, and I've seen women tell these guys, "I'm gonna have a big black baby by you." I've seen black women say this to these guys. They want a big black baby from these guys because these guys were 6'3" and above, and uh, built like built like John Henry, swinging that hammer on the railroad track. Them guys is built like that. Huge. They look like they can ejaculate pro athletes. I've seen black women say that. I've seen white women say that. Um, seen this Latin woman say that. Everybody wants to produce a D1 athlete. What up, Cortez? What up, Cortez? How you doing? Shout out to Cortez Smith. I appreciate you being here, brother. We talking about This whole Shannon Sharp situation and Tracy Ellis Ross, I've seen, I've seen women talk like that though. All races of women that I can think of. I haven't seen Indian women talk like that. You know, uh, but I've seen. I'm not gonna say all races. I've seen a lot of women talk like that. As far as the Tracy Ellis Ross thing, I've what do y'all think the passport cis movement is? That's Tracy Ellis Ross. The Cougars. That's Tracy Ellis Ross. She is the embodiment of all of that stuff. She is the mouthpiece and the avatar for all of that stuff. Cortez Smith says they think the kids are going to be athletic and bring in money. Yes, absolutely. I've got women in my family that have said stuff like that. On one side of the family, they produce big athletic looking dudes, and and the women seek out big athletic men to keep that going. Um, but yeah, man. That whole Tracy Ellis Ross is um she is Sex in the City. Um, Stella got her groove back. Uh, passports. So she's all of that bullshit rolled up into one. You know, that's her. She's the avatar of that. She is the living meme of all of that stuff, man. And y'all cool with it. A lot of y'all cool with it. A lot of the females, y'all cool with it, and all you female-minded men are cool with it, and all you same sexuals, y'all cool with that. You know. But y'all want Shannon Sharp to be with a woman Monique age. you know, like women Monique age don't be pulling it. It is what it is. Cortez Smith says, ain't this some shit? Hold up one second. Cortez Smith says he's laughing out loud. He says, as you're saying this, I'm looking at an Indian with a black husband. The synchronicity is insane. Yeah, man. Yeah, you know what, Cortez? I gotta say, I haven't seen Indian women say anything like that about the eugenics as far as breeding bigger, faster, stronger, darker. I haven't seen that, but I wouldn't be surprised. I do know some Indian women who deal with black men, and they are very different than your average Indian man. So, you know, so I mean that's all of that is anecdotal, but nonetheless, it has actually happened. So, y'all can argue it if you want. It is what it is. So the whole thing about assortative dating, you know, to be honest, I mean, younger is better looking. If you're going strictly on looks, younger is better. You're not, and to be honest, you're not going to find a young, beautiful woman who is really wise. They're not wise. They may be school book smart. They may be sassy at the mouth, but they're not wise. They're not all that insightful. And the same thing with young men. And as far as young men, they may be fit, strong, 4% body fat and stuff. But more likely, that dude is broke. That dude is broke. It is what it is. The difference is that a man is expected to build a life to protect and provide. An older man can protect and provide for a younger woman. An older woman can't provide anything to a younger man other than sexual experience. Basically, she's target practice for the women that young guy will really want someday. she's target practice. That coochie's a workout for when that guy really meets the woman he wants to impress. It is what it is. Cortez Smith says, I started seeing Indian women with a lot of black dudes around 2020. One dude wanted me to marry his daughter. Is getting common for some reason. It's a come up. That's what I see it is. It's a come up. It's that wealth transfer I was talking about. Hey, get it by hook or crook. Um, but yeah, getting back to, um, I personally, who you have sex with is your business. And I say sex rather than dating because that's all dating is. I equate dating and sex as the same. Now, if you're courting, you're evaluating a person to be a possible marriage partner. That's different. But dating is for sex. That's what it originally was, and then the way I look at it, that's what it's for. Dating is for boning. Dating is for smashing, boning, cutting, whatever you want to call it. Dating is for sex. Courting, calling on, that's different. I don't even say talking, that negotiation, because y'all don't be talking other than, what's your favorite color? If you had a superpower, what would it be? Stupid shit. That's that, talking means absolutely nothing. Cortez Smith says it's not even high level black men. That's why I'm confused. They're mostly normal. Hey, bruh. Again, it's some level of doing. They're trying to get that girl out the house so that they don't have to keep taking care of her. That's how they see it. Hey, listen, we're gonna let her be somebody else's expense and problem. She's gonna be somebody else's bill and headache. That's how, Indian fathers, especially, that's how they see it. 'Cause they don't have a single mother culture, but if they date black guys, that might just happen. you know. And definitely if Indian guys are dating black females, it definitely they gonna wind up being baby daddies, more so than the guys. Black guys will try to marry, women. The black guys have demonstrated that they get married more than black women. Women don't propose, so and then black guys do want to get married. The women, they all claim to be turning down 2 and 3 marriage proposals, so you know they don't want to get married. But I think Indian women do. You know, I think women of other races they still believe in it for now. Um, I'm pretty sure that's going to change, you know, depending on how society goes. But, you know, it is what it is, man. So, yeah, yeah. But, you know, getting back to this whole Shannon Sharp situation, the enemy to guys like that is ultimately it's attorneys. He's a target. The more money you make, the more you become a target. And lawyers are the new stick up kids. They're the new they're the new bandits, and they as far as like accusing guys especially black men of sexual offenses, that's the new robbery. It's the new robbery. And so guys like Shannon Sharp, you got to figure out how to deal with that on the onset, and it takes paperwork and money, paperwork and money. You know, um, and I would say get a passport, flying out of the country, you know, going to certain spots, um, takes care of that. And if it were me, I wouldn't go to the usual. I wouldn't go to the spots everybody go to, like Sasua, anywhere in Colombia, anywhere in like Thailand, stuff like that. I wouldn't go to them spots. Africa, I wouldn't go to them spots. I'd go to other spots that aren't as familiar, and but where commercialized activities can be participated in legally. And I would just do things that way and deal with it that way. Just contract, pay per use straight up, because getting it off the mouthpiece, like I said, you're gonna pay, you're gonna eventually pay, you know, you're gonna eventually pay. Cortez Smith says, uh the craziest thing I heard is that older white men wanting their daughters to stay black students. It's a thing in Hoover, Alabama. I don't trust them. Well, Cortez, that's because what they call white supremacy is over. It's done. So now you got people making deals. You got people making deals. We're gonna leave that at that because I don't think people are ready for that conversation. Um, Cortez Smith said, "That's my first thought. The Indian guy didn't want to take care of his daughter and didn't want her to become a feminist." Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. He's trying to get rid of a problem. He's trying to successfully get rid of a problem. As far as those white guys in places like that, it's kind of the same thing. They don't want to have to keep paying for a an old maid. Um, they don't want to have to, you know, they they don't want to bill in a headache, especially now with how shaky this economy is. Um, it's financial management, it's economic management. When you really think about it, bro, and then they have a lot more common with a black man in the South than they do a you know a Russian. You know, um, Black men in America tend to be a little. They tend to be more egalitarian and more accommodating. That's the word I was looking for earlier. Accommodating. They tend to be more accommodating than men from other places, and they know black men. They know how to control them, and so it is what it is. You know, um, so rather deal with the devil you know than the devil you don't know. I think that's the terms that a lot of them are coming. And like I said, that ideal of white supremacy, it's really dying. So it really is. We're starting to see it, that it's been dead for a while, but we're starting to see it. You know, so that's what you have. They talk about the browning of the American population. That's, yeah, by 2050, everybody's going to be able to get a golden brown tan in this country, you know. So, well, if not everybody, majority of people, so I mean, that's just the way things are going. But and there's going to be more of a focus on class than there is race, especially, you know, uh, with some of the things that they're trying to push. And then too, um, there's a pushback against the androgynous the L Gibbons culture. So you know, so you have that, that's that's some of the things that's under consideration. Um, but you know, getting back to what I was talking about earlier, you know, being with an older woman wasn't necessarily going to save Shannon Sharp, you know. And if this whole situation wasn't an outright psyop, which I still think it is, I think it's largely fugazi. The thing about it is, the older women are saying the same things the young girls are saying. Um, so being married to an older woman wouldn't have saved them. Uh, and the thing about it, the only thing that would have saved him was him dealing with, women who um understand discretion, and have who have been taken care of well enough to where they know to shut their mouths, you know. Um, so that at the end of the day, that was going to be um that's the difference. If you dealing with these girls that do everything for clout, you know, like, your Lily Phillips, she let all of these guys, run an Amtrak, you know, playing Amtrak games with these guys, and all of these chicks airing out all their business. This is what happens, and then when you ain't honest, with these little chicks you dealing with, they're going to out dishonest you. They're going to out finesse you. Shannon is, he's not dealing with desperate, you know, he 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 may be country, but he's been separated from desperate street people for a long time. And he's not used to, this is the era of the scammer. The scamming is really like the new dope game. And I've been saying this for a long time. Scamming is the new dope game. Cortez Smith says that's a good point. He says, I think it's all fake and it's a psyop. Yeah, I think it's a psyop. And like I said, man, it's either that or Shannon just, he's out there playing in the mud, and he got bit by, now he got, critters and chiggers. The thing is that these types like that, they're not used to that street level scamming. Like I said, as I already said, scamming is a new dope game, and women would rather scam than be out there getting caught selling dope. Because think about, the women have too many social parachutes to get out of having the finger pointed at them for being scammers. There's too many ways for them to escape accountability for you know, scamming men out of money. It's almost expected and accepted that women scam men out of money. And the lawyers are the new, stick up kids and stuff, and they all work together. And social media is the new pimp. That's the new pimp. That's the new, if you from Chicago, that's the new Madison and Kenton. You from LA, that's the new Figueroa. You know, you from Philly, that's the new Kensington Ave. That's the new, it's the new Blade. Social media is the new Blade. Uh and it's the new pimp. Lawyers are the new, stick up kid, you know. And this is what you got. Women are scamming is the new dope game. That's how they're gonna get money. And I mean, you got guys running scams and stuff too, but Andrew Tate was running scams. He was running scams. Um, a lot of these guys that call themselves selling these classes, they did all that shit is really scams. But that's the new dope game, and it's safer. It's like the dirty white collar crime. You know, so that's what you have nowadays. So that's what it is. And it'll probably be like that until the U.S. finally gets its own version of the Chinese social credit system, which they was trying to do under Biden, and it's going to happen it's going to happen eventually. I don't know if it's going to happen under the right or the left, but they both want it. Don't let these conservatives fool you. They want that shit too. They want it just as much as the leftists do. It's a fight of control over that social credit shit. That they neither one of them believe in freedom of speech. Don't neither one of those sides. Neither side believe in freedom of speech for real. you know, it is what it is. They both be on bullshit when they talk freedom of speech. You know, and they both want that social credit system. you know but that all the running scams and stuff that'll they'll that should all be part of that, some kind of in some form or fashion. So um you know other than that, gentlemen, man, what do y'all think, man? I appreciate I appreciate the people that came through. Do me a favor, if you still in here, hit that like button, man. Hit that like button. We're gonna do more streams. Especially if y'all hit these, y'all, you know, subscribe and share. Just hit the like button. I'll do more of these streams. There'll be later streams, but I'll do more of these streams if that's what y'all want, man. I don't know if y'all can tell. I done lost some weight. I done slimmed down because I was getting too fat. So I done slimmed down some. Still working on that business um, that I talked about. So we'll see how that goes. Hit a few roadblocks. The biggest thing is for the business side. It's the money. You know, it's the money, and really it's getting the contracts and stuff. Um, so that's the big thing. And then just starting this stuff. You don't make money for the first couple of years, so it is what it is. But I'm still working on that, and you know, trying to make it happen, man. You know, trying to get it done before we get Tiffany Crockett as president, because I know some of y'all punk asses want to vote for, because y'all love Keisha. Y'all want President Keisha twerking in the White House. I'm just messing with y'all. Just messing with you guys. Anyway, man. But I'm going to end this here. I'll come back tomorrow, sometime in the evening, and do another live stream. But I'll get active with this stuff again, and we'll see if we can make it do what it do. I appreciate y'all being here. This is Mr. Royce Media. Like, share, and subscribe.